Hello and welcome to Choose Your Struggle Presents A Day in the Life. Uh, for those of you who are tuning in right now, I gotta say I love the punctuality. We are not going to start right on time. We never start right on time because most people are not as punctual as we are. So I'm going to jump backstage. I'll be back out in a couple minutes. And in the meantime, grab your drink, grab your popcorn, whatever you need, because this one's going to be a good one. All right, I'll see you in a couple minutes. All right, welcome to another episode of Choose Your Struggle Presents A Day in the Life. I am your host, Jay Schiffman, the founder of Choose Your Struggle. Now, what we're doing tonight, these Day in the Life episodes, are meant to be semi-regular storytelling events for community. The two stated goals of these are to help reintroduce storytelling to people's lives and to build community around storytelling. I mean, that's as simple as that. Before we get into tonight's amazing guest, a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, yes, I know every single time somebody tells me my green screen is not working, I know. I love this platform. There's a couple of bugs with it. I love that it can go live on multiple platforms. So wherever you're watching this right now, you should see there's like a chat or comments or whatever beneath the video. Know that I can see, I'm looking at it right now, I can see anything that you say in those comments. So if you want something that you want tonight's amazing guest to see, if you want something for me to see, say it. I'll put it up on screen within reason, obviously. But as I was saying, there are some downsides to this platform, one of which being green screen doesn't work. That's okay. Another one you may be seeing. I'm gonna try to mimic it. There it is. The eyeball up in the corner. Now, what that's trying to tell us is how many people are watching this. Here's the thing: it doesn't work. No offense to StreamYard. If one of the amazing founders of StreamYard is watching, you have a great platform. That doesn't work. So ignore that number. I don't know why they don't just get rid of it. This is a common complaint for those of us who use this platform. So those are the kind of housekeeping things. Ignore those. Now, before we get going, I do have to give a shout out to our partner for tonight. Now, you can see at the bottom of my screen, bookshop.org. Bookshop.org is an amazing, amazing program. What they do is they have all your favorite books, just like that big name who, the founder shot himself to space in a giant penis. We're not going to say his name, but they have all your favorite books. But unlike that giant penis company, they actually will help local bookstores when you purchase from them. What they do is when you sign up for an account with them, they ask you to choose your favorite bookstore. They actually allow you to switch that up. So if you have multiple orders, you can choose different bookstores. Now, not only are they going to kick back some of the proceeds from that order to that local bookstore, and by the way, if you're watching Harriet's, I know you know how much I love you. For those of you not in the Philly area, Harriet's is an incredible black-owned bookstore, black woman-owned bookstore here in Philadelphia. I've selected them as my partner. But not only that, but Bookshop works with small and independent businesses like mine to partner with us so that not only are some of your proceeds going to these bookstores, but some of them are going to me too. So if you go to this link, bookshop.org/shop/CYS for Choose Your Struggle, not only are you going to see all of the books that have been mentioned on my podcast, that's my list right there, but if you go to that link and then buy any book you want after that, I'm going to get some proceeds from that order. So if you're thinking about buying a book and you don't want to go to the giant penis company, check out Bookshop and help me out. Help out a small business, small bookshop in your area, or choose one in somebody else's area, whatever you want to do. Thank you, Bookshop. Thank you for your partnership. My links are at the bottom right now. The ones I want to shout out real quick. You can find me at jschiffman.com. If you're interested in telling your story, whether for this platform or one of the other storytelling events I do or my podcast, find me at jschiffman.com or on social media. I am Jay Schiffman or Choose Your Struggle at all social media. But the podcast, the Choose Your Struggle podcast, you can find anywhere you get your podcasts. This recording will go out as a special episode of that podcast in the next couple of months. So added reason to go check that out. Now, that's enough about me because tonight is not about me. I'm just your host. I'm just your producer. Tonight's guest is somebody that I connected with, about 5 months ago, right? I was actually living in a different city. That's how long ago this was. We got connected, and we just vibed immediately. Like, all right, we're going to figure out some ways to work together because we're both working on similar things, and we have similar passion for this work. So Swiyah is the founder of Stamp Love. And this, kind of like Choose Your Struggle, is more than just a brand. This is a movement, right? Stamp Love is so incredible, doing some amazing work. Every time I'm on social media, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's doing that now? Like, it's just everything. And there's just so much going on. But here's the thing. I can't tell you about this. I'm not her. I'm not Swiyah. She's going to tell you about this. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her up here. She's going to tell you about her work, and she's going to tell you a story tonight. How's that sound? Swiyah, you want to come on up here and tell these people a story?
Hi, Jay.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and go backstage. I'm going to put your links up here on the screen so everybody can see this. But please, after you tell your story, make sure you take 30 seconds or so to shout out all the work you're doing where people can find you, all right?
Will do. Will do. Hi, my name is Swiyah. I am the founder of Stamp Love, a nonprofit organization that advocates for mental health and education within the community. But today I'm here to tell you a story. I'm going to start with a quote from Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde said, "There is no such thing as a single struggle because there is no single issue lives." With that being said, that leads me to think about complex trauma. Complex trauma is described to be trauma that children are exposed to, multiple traumatic events, often invisible and interpersonal nature. So when I think about my complex trauma, I think about when I was impacted at the age of 9. One Saturday morning, we went to ballet, and then we came to my aunt's house. I walked in the door. I took my jacket off because it was a cold November, windy day. And I warmed my hands up to go see my little cousin. He was 1 month and 1 day old. As I warmed my hands up, my aunt yelled out that we were not allowed to see each other because he was sleeping. So I went to the kitchen and I looked for snacks, and then I climbed in the big recliner. My uncle, who's like 6 foot, almost 7 feet tall, his recliner was super big and I was super small. So I climbed in the recliner to get comfortable. I watched Teen Summit. There was reruns on. I fell asleep. I got so cozy, I fell asleep, went to sleep, and when I went to sleep, the one episode of Teen Summit was on. But when I woke up, the same episode had came on again. So I went to my little cousin, was wondering why he wasn't up. When I went over there to see why he wasn't up, I noticed that he wasn't breathing. At this time, I realized that I need to go ahead and contact my aunt. I went to the intercom. Before I could get to the intercom, my uncle was already coming up the steps. My uncle worked on my little cousin for a little bit, and actually after this, it really everything goes to a blur. I remember being in the morgue because I remember how cold it was, and that I was in a part of a hospital I've never ever been, even though the hospital was familiar. At 9 years old, I also realized that this wasn't my first episode of a traumatic situation. It was part of my traumatic timeline. By that time, I had been the protector of my brothers, the protector of my mother. I've been the protector of my family, even at the young age of 9. So by the time that I got done dealing with the trauma from my little cousin, because then people reached out and there was grief counseling offered by the school because the school found out. But what I realized is the traumatic situations that were going on in my home. My mother was currently addicted to drugs, and I was the oldest child, so a lot of things fell on me. With that being said, I realized that I had a lot of situations that were traumatic, from the violence in my home and the violence that was just going on in the neighborhood. But what I realized is that I was what I would find out was resilient. What was so resilient about me at 9 that some of my peers didn't get? That's what I had to figure out. But at 9 years old, I knew that I would lock myself in a room and I would just write. I would write to my mother and tell her about how she should choose us, and she shouldn't choose to be in the streets. I would write stories and plays and spoken word just to describe what I was going through. This developed my framework, or what it would soon be my framework, because today that I know that the trauma that I deal with from day to day basis as being an African American woman, or just being in a city that's full of crime, I go to my framework to be able to manage my concerns. That's me writing in a journal and affirming the truth that I am great and that I'm enough and that I can heal myself. That became my framework for healing. That's also part of my resilience story. That's what makes me different from peers that didn't weren't able to manage the way I was. With me being able and knowing my story, I now offer that to other people with a partner called Journey Wellness, where I am an intern. I also advocate for others who may not have the skills to be resilient. I teach resiliency in the classroom. I teach resiliency as a therapist, and I advocate for financial economic and for a better understanding for people from impoverished areas. If you want more information, you can get more information from the links attached to this. Jay, I'm done.
All right. Well, thank you for your vulnerability. Number one, that was not an easy story to listen to, and I imagine it was an easy story to tell.
Mm.
So before we like get into some of the other things, for more detail on the story, was there ever a diagnosis about what happened with your cousin?
He was a baby that passed away from SIDS. So it was nobody's fault. It just was, I guess, God, what we'll call God's timing.
So this is something that I know so little about as someone who is not a parent and also not uh, around kids that much. I know that SIDS is one of those things that's just dumb luck, to use a terrible term. But take this moment, I guess, as somebody who I guess knows more than I do. Do we know much about this, about ways to prevent it, or is there really just not that much known?
I mean, you can go back and forth. I mean, I think when my kids were little, they were saying not to place a baby on their stomach, and then I heard not to place a baby on its back. As a parent, especially since I've shared with you that lived experience, I pretty much watched over my kids very often while they were asleep, just being nervous, and especially being young because I had them at like 17. So I was very, very nervous about that's bad timing about what was taking place. So I just paid a lot of attention to what their needs were. Um I don't know what that's great. I don't know what I'm sorry, the computer's dying.
You're
Um
right.
I don't know what other things you really can do to prevent SIDS. I think personally that there is a genetic impact on it because if you look at my family line, he's not the only one.
So,
Um,
so then thinking that, was that something that going to your framework, is that something that you dealt with when, how many kids do you have now?
I have three.
Was this something, I mean, 3 year, three separate times of periods of kids being that young had to be stressful for you in that respect. Not just generally stressful as young kids are, but with this particular topic in mind.
Yes, it did. And again, you go back to your framework, even though, especially being a young parent, you really don't know that that's your framework, but you go back to your framework and you figure out ways to heal it. And I was fortunate enough to have positive ways to heal it. Some people go to drugs and alcohol to heal it or to be able to manage it. And I wasn't one that did that. And that's the difference from me and a lot of my peers.
So I guess this is a question that I'm literally asking you to speculate as we're talking. Do you think there are a lot of people that go through trauma when they're young, and yet some of us, go through it, and just being able to manage it is enough, and that's fine. And then there's others like us that decide to do something with it. So I ask this always of people like yourself who are like me, who went through something and then wanted to give back. What do you think it was for you that made you go, all right, I lived through, not just this story, but all the other trauma that you alluded to. Now I want to give back and help others.
I think that my feeling is kind of from my gut, where I really believe that the trauma that I went through and the things that I went through with, as being the daughter of somebody in addiction and the kid that I have, it allowed me to live my purpose, which I feel like is mental health and
Right, but I guess what
advocating.
I'm saying is that happens to a lot of people. Not what made you special, because everybody has that thing about them, but what was it that in you said, all right, now I have to do this, right? Like I have to go on this journey.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like it's more of a spiritual thing that allows me to say it because you can either be part of the problem or you can be part of the solution. I think I was told that when I was young. So I choose to be part of the solution. I guess that's the only answer.
So then thinking about all the other people that you are constantly interacting with, as I said at the beginning, you're very busy, and you alluded to that too, that you do a lot. I mean, in this, that you have a lot of different paths inside of this journey. How do you try to share that idea with these people that you may be interacting with that are going through similar trauma?
genuine love. Like it's just that simple, really. It sounds crazy. It may sound crazy. It may sound too simple, but I do. I have genuine compassion for others. I'm humane to others, and a lot of times humans don't experience that. As sad as that may sound, they don't.
So that's such a great point. This is something I ask pretty much everyone on every one of my platforms, but like then tying that full circle, right? Because you've added the education and work experience to your lived experience, right? You're not just going, but how big do you think it is for you in your work? Not personally, not your motivation, but the work that you literally do. How big is it that you've been there and you can say to people, I know what you're going through because I was there myself?
I mean, my personal experience, my personal belief is I don't want a counselor that can't relate to me. I don't want a teacher that doesn't know what I've been through and can't understand what it's like to actually go to school and be living with these things. Because how are you going to educate me? How are you going to help me heal from something you've never been through?
I love it. So keep that's such a amazing point. So then tell us a little bit about how, when you're working, I don't want names, I don't want specifics, but like, how do you relate that to someone? Like, how much are you able to say, like, not only do I get it, but like I've been there,
So in therapy, you are allowed to use self-disclosure, but you use it at your discretion. You figure out where it fits in. Of course, you don't come into the hi, my name is, and you just kind of give all your business. Like, you don't do that, but because you're the client's there to have a service, so you're there to listen to the client and kind of receive what they have to give and what they've been through. And then if your self-disclosure supports them, then it's okay for you to self-disclose.
So on a funnier topic or lighter topic of that, do your kids get tired of it? Like, Mom, we know you've been there, okay? We get it.
Ironically, I am part of I am somebody who believes in self-healing, and my daughter calls me a tree hugger. And the funny part about it is, as she's getting older, she's actually starting some of these tree hugging processes herself. And I'm just watching like, okay.
I love it. So then let's go down that path for a second. So one of the questions I ask everybody on my podcast is, what self-care works for you? So tell us a little bit about those tree hugging ways of yours. What works for you that to keep you going in the right direction?
I have a journal. It's always around. I have a journal where I just jot stuff down and I release. So once I release whatever is going on and I need to deal with, then I affirm the change that I want. I use affirmations. I use meditation. I'm supposed to use exercise. Let's be honest. I'm struggling with that. And I think yoga is something that everybody should use because of the empirical information for and research that supports yoga and the changes in the brain.
I love it. So you said your daughter is getting into that. Is that something that you've like not pushed on them, but like strongly advocated that they get into is self-care?
You don't advocate anything for a teenager. You kind of just show it and hopefully it'll stick. Because what I realize is the more that I push, the more that's not going to happen. So we just kind of show, we model, and we keep it moving.
Well, it's been wonderful learning from you tonight. So tell us now briefly, just shout out anything you got coming up you want people to know about. I mean, what's going on? Like I said, Stamp Love is doing so much. So how can people get involved? How can they support?
Okay, so we have a podcast. It's called Stamp Love. Let's talk about it. Jay has an episode on there. I also have apparel available at stamplove.org. Please purchase because this is how we support ourselves. I also help because my story does have a financial impact. I do help people with their credit and understanding their credit, and also help people become agents to be able to fix other people's credit. because you need to be resourceful. You can also get my podcast on YouTube. You can book me for a session at journeywellnessdelaware.com.
I love it. Anyone? So actually, question about that: does somebody for a session have to be in Delaware? Or can they be anywhere?
They would need to be in Delaware.
Okay, so if you're in Delaware, go
Yes.
check out that one. If you're not, check out all the other links and buy some merch. As a merch person myself, I usually start the show by showing off the merch. I don't have it on me tonight. I just didn't feel like it. So instead, go buy Stamp Love merch. All right. Anything else? Any other shout out you want to give before we end this?
On August 27th, I will be telling more of my story. It will be an event located at the venue 2409 Lancaster Avenue in Wilmington, Delaware, and it will be a full event from 6 to 9. Please come
Wow.
by.
That sounds awesome. If you're in the area, definitely go and maybe record it for the rest of us. All right. Well, I'm going to call you Stamp Love because just like I'm Choose Your Struggle, you're Stamp Love. Two brands, two movements going at it tonight. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.